That is what we dive in deep on every single day. EAGLES. Eagles here on Birds 365. You got McDonald and McMullen to do it. And we are joined by Mike Gill, who's going to do it with us for the next 15, 20 minutes. And today's T-shirt du jour is
Arizona State.
Our party school. We're not going Ivy League. We're going.
I'm thinking of warmer weather, Jody Mack. It's miserable down the shore today, so I am thinking of warmer weather.
By the way, Mike Gill, I forgot to tell Jody this pre-show, so I'll say it on air. Happy birthday to Mike.
No!
Gill. Yes.
Happy birthday, Mike Gill. Did not know that.
What better way to start than on Birds 365, your birthday?
Yes. This is a older, wiser version of Mike Gill today.
We'll give you that evaluation coming up in 20 minutes. We know you're older. We'll find out if you're wiser.
Let's find out.
Let's go here. Mike Gill, and I know it's not, it never is, but the perfect birthday. What are you doing today? Out and about, hard work. Appreciate you coming on here on the Birds Sports Bash. When all is said and done and work is done for the day, what Mike Gill doing to celebrate his birthday?
Well, I am working today. I think I've reached the age where I don't take the day off on my birthday.
Nor do I. Yeah, none of us do anymore.
We're going to dinner tonight. I am taking Friday off, and I'm leaving for the weekend. We're going up to the Poconos for the weekend. We got a cabin up that way. So we will be up there for a weekend with a bunch of friends. So I'm taking Friday off, but I will work tonight, going to dinner tonight, and then taking the weekend off. I was looking we were looking all over the place. It's supposed to rain everywhere. So we weren't we were going to go to Nashville for the weekend or New Orleans or something. Rain everywhere. So we just decided to go up to the cabin.
Nice. Okay. You're living a life, by the way. You get to hang out down the shore, then you go to a vacation up the Poconos. You're always vacation spot to vacation spot.
Maybe
I like to get out of here.
Maybe he is older and wiser. We got to give him credit. He's doing research on where he should and shouldn't go. That's pretty. That
is pretty wise.
Borderline impressive.
I need a wise man to explain this, and I have two wise men here who listen to callers and in your case texters, Mike, and so I want to run this both by you because the latest name Jody and I were talking about, Kliff Kingsbury, as a potential offensive coordinator candidate. Now I see on my social media you got two groups. Well, you know. Lincoln Riley, Kliff Kingsbury, they're together. Lincoln did such a great job with Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. Great potential hire. The other ones, he's terrible. He couldn't make Patrick Mahomes a quarterback. He was pretty good to the point he was a pretty high pick. Now, Andy Reid helps when you get to the NFL. Why do you guys think there's such conviction and such certainty when it comes to fans talking about coaches? They know about everybody. I don't know. They know.
I always contend why the fans always blame the coach in every sport is because they believe that that's a job that they could perform. They could be the coach. They can't play. They do have an understanding that they are not capable of playing.
Can't be A.J. Brown. Can't be
the game. But I do think deep down, many believe if they had the opportunity to be the GM or the coach, that they could do that job. And because what they were told in fourth grade by Coach Joe, that is drilled into them. And they believe that Coach Joe was the guy who knew more than anybody. And now they know more than everybody. And the coaching thing. Now, with Kliff Kingsbury, I did not like when Arizona hired. I could not believe he got a head coaching NFL job based on what he did at Texas Tech. I could not understand it for the life of me. He did go to Arizona, and I got to say he exceeded early expect. Like, he had some success. He took them to the playoffs. They had a fun offense, but it almost seemed kind of Chip Kelly-ish, is that he had a lot of successes. People were trying to figure him out, and then when they did, he just didn't have the temperament to deal with NFL. He had no discipline. That place was a disaster when he left. And I just don't want to see a guy come in here who's kind of a one-trick pony and left there pretty much with like, hey, the place was on fire and he didn't do anything to stop it. Just no discipline. I would be out on Kingsbury. But that is my assertion as to why people think about they know the coach.
Let me give you a hand from a portion of the Philadelphia Eagle fan base. Because if you're in the run the ball mode as an Eagle fan and think that they don't run it enough and there's not enough out, you don't want to be hiring Mr. Kingsbury, Coach Kingsbury, because he's going to come in here, he's going to throw it, and then he's going to throw it some more. I don't care if the quarterback whisperer, Lincoln Riley, whispered to him, so therefore he could whisper to Jalen. The Eagle crowd that loves balance in their offense is not getting that with Kliff Kingsbury. But what do you think Jeffrey Lurie would say to a hire like that? The guy who believes that the way to a championship is high-level passing attacks. John and I just agreed. This has got Howie Roseman written all over it. You think Jeff Lurie is also well on board with a potential Kliff Kingsbury offense coming to Philadelphia?
That's a good question. This thing always stumps me. Why does anybody care the aesthetics of the win if you win in the game? It just doesn't make any sense to me that someone would say, I want this guy because he's not going to run the ball. He's going to win in the fashion, even though this guy might be better and more qualified. He's going to run too much, and therefore I will take the lesser candidate because he wants to do it the way I want to do it. Look, I don't know who has the ties to Kingsbury. These are always the things with the Eagles that you're trying to figure out. Who's making this call? Is this a Sirianni call? Is this a Roseman call? What connection does Kliff Kingsbury have, or Lurie have to the Eagles organization? And that's what makes this guy's name popping out all the more interesting to this whole story. Is, did Jeff Lurie say, well, we'll pass the ball? That's the guy I want to make a call to. Did Roseman make this call?
This one's easy, Mike. This is a Roseman. This is a Roseman.
I would think it's a Roseman. I would think it's a Roseman. And then what's the connection? Do you have any connecting to the Dodgers?
Lincoln Riley. Howie is very close to Lincoln Riley. Loves Lincoln Riley.
Gotcha. So Lincoln Riley calls Roseman and says, hey, can you do my boy a solid?
It's probably the other way around. Howie, will go to Lincoln Riley for advice. That's the first thing he did when they let go of Doug Peterson. First call he made was, hey, Lincoln, would you consider you want to come to the NFL at some point? I wouldn't be surprised if he's the head coach here at some point, Lincoln Riley. Because with NIL exploding on college, a lot of college coaches, Jody and I were talking about this yesterday, they're fed up with it. You got to recruit kids 4 times now. You got to recruit them every year. And a lot of guys are looking to get out. I don't know where Lincoln Riley is. Certainly coming off a disappointing season. This is probably not the time to do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's the head coach here at some point. So that's how close those two are and how much Howie respects Lincoln Riley. So, it's one of the reasons Jalen Hurts is here, to be honest. Lincoln Riley talked him up. So, to me, this one's an obvious Howie Roseman. Now, is it serious? Is it not serious? We talked about Jim Bob Cooter with Jeff McClain yesterday. Doesn't look that serious. That's a Nick Sirianni guy. Jim Bob is a Nick Sirianni guy. That's one of my concerns, though, guys. Those guys are getting erased pretty quickly. Tommy Rees, big Nick Sirianni guy, Alabama offensive coordinator. He's back in the league with Cleveland. He's off. Seems like Jim Bob's off. Maybe he'll get an interview, but he's not serious, according to McClain. You can't even consider Kevin Patullo and Jason Michael, who have, Jason's been a former offensive coordinator in this league. Kevin, we all know how close he is with Nick Sirianni, but they have the taint of this coaching staff. You can't go that direction. Mike McCoy, Frank Reich, we don't know where they are. I know Rob Motti mentioned yesterday Nick has not reached out to Frank yet about the job. It seems like they want to push away. They want to make they want to make Nick Sirianni uncomfortable. Is that a good thing?
I brought this up. It was an unpopular opinion on my show, which is it's probably unpopular, but don't the Eagles have the right to do this? People keep questioning the Eagles as if Howie's the guy and Nick's a puppet and Laurie and Roseman do everything. Yeah, because they're one of the most successful organizations in the NFL, whether we like it or not. Super Bowls isn't what defines every team because they know you're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. But if you are one of the best organizations year after year, for 20 years, they have 5 losing seasons. We're going crazy doing backflips about Detroit because they haven't won a playoff game in 30 years. The Eagles consistently have multiple front office people poached from them and multiple coaches poached from them. The Eagles would say, so what? This is the way we do things. And everybody else wants to do what we do. So don't they have the right to run it this way?
Well, they certainly have the rights. I mean, they can do whatever they want. The question is that the right way to do it?
Right. And I would say they would say based on the success we've had and the amount of teams that take our executives to run their organizations, I think they do it just about as good, if not better, than everybody else.
And you're right. The track record says that they've accomplished what they've accomplished and should be judged accordingly. All right, Mike, this has kind of surprised me, at least over the last 24, 48 hours, when it became unofficially official. Our very own D-Gun put it out there first, and it was confirmed yesterday by Jeff McClain that Brian Johnson is not going to be back as Eagles offense coordinator. They held on to him for what they thought was a reasonable amount of time. Didn't want to compromise his chances to get a head coaching job. They were rooting for him to get a head coaching job because then they, as per the Rooney Rule, could have gotten compensatory draft picks with his hiring by another team. But they finally had to throw their hands up and go, listen, we got to start talking to people about replacing him because we're going to replace him.
Kingsbury.
We got to put that. Somebody else got to call Kliff Kingsbury first. We got to do it first. And it's been this tumult, uprising of poor Brian Johnson. And why would they do this to Brian Johnson? And it's not Brian Johnson's fault. And Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, came out yesterday, said really bad vibes on the rest of the staff that Brian Johnson got caught in the middle and the like. I don't get it. I really don't. The Eagles offense went backwards this year. And the only major change they had from the year before when they were one of the best offenses in the NFL was they changed their play caller. If you really believe that Cam Jurgens for the offensive line was a massive drop-off, okay, you're breaking down tape better than I am. But otherwise, it's the same exact offense, and it went backwards. What was the one change? Brian Johnson, so he gets a free pass? He shouldn't be held accountable for what he was doing?
It's an interesting way you look at this, Jody, because people are upset the way Brian Johnson was handled. Are they essentially saying if Brian's going to be at fault, so too then Nick, because this is his offense? You're saying it's the same offense. Yeah, it's Nick's offense. I don't want to call your offense, Jody. It's no offense. I don't want you to design something, hand me the book, and say call these plays.
Yeah, but time out, Brian Johnson / Mike Gill. When we gave you the job, you knew the deal.
Sure.
It wasn't like, yeah, Brian, you're going to come in. You go, well, you're going to sign the offense. You sign the contract. Oh, yeah, you're going to be running my offense. All you're going to do is call the play.
Well, and this is where
they laid it out for him. He knew what the gig was when he took it.
Yeah, this is where the convolution of who picks Brian Johnson. Does Howie Roseman say Johnson's the guy? Does Sirianni say, well, I want Patullo? Nope, you're not taking him. You're taking him. Okay, but he's going to run my offense. Brian Johnson, again, gets stuck in the crossfire here of, I want the job. I want the title. And then, like everything, like, you know, when you're a coach or a GM and the former number 1 pick gets released because he's flamed out somewhere, he gets another shot because everybody thinks they can get number 1, talent out of that guy that someone else didn't. So Brian Johnson might say, this isn't ideal, but you know what? I'll figure it out and I'll do it. And it'll lead me to something else. I'm not going to not take the job. And that's where these guys get stuck sometimes, where you dangle, here's the job. It's not ideal, but it's better than what I'm doing. I guess I'll take it. And look, this is a weird situation. I talked about it. I said, has there ever been a candidate who's up for 3 head coaching jobs that ended up only being 2? And he's going to get fired from his team for lack of performance.
Yeah,
I mean, I've never seen such a thing. By the way, 2 points for you, McMullen. Or Jody wasn't here last week, but 2 weeks ago when Jody and I both said Brian Johnson we didn't think would get an interview, he got 2 and then had a third one that got pulled out from him. But somehow he turned into a candidate. So the point is this. The teams around the league, are they saying, we know what was going on over there. That's not this guy's offense. And you guys are missing out on a guy who's a smart coach because you're allowing this coach to make him run his offense.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that why you hired Nick Sirianni for his offense? I mean, I gave Jody this quote that Nick told us in the summer of 2022. So I'll give it to you and give your thoughts. No matter if it's Kevin Patullo, and I said, notice who the first name came out of his mouth was. Kevin Patullo is calling it. Shane Steichen's calling it. Brian Johnson is calling it. Jeff Stoutland's calling it. Jason Michael is calling it. Jonathan Gannon comes over and calls it. Howie calls it from up in the box. Jeffrey Lurie, Dom DeSandro, Julian Lurie. I'm very particular. I know what I believe in: the passing, the running game, offensive football. That's what they hired. They hired him, his offense, that's his expertise. If they don't want him now, that's fine, but show the courage of your convictions. That's what I wrote yesterday. To do this smacks in the, to me, it doesn't make sense because you're trying to prove that you didn't make a mistake with Nick Sirianni. What is, if you want to go away from what he does, that means you have to go away from the head coach, not Brian Johnson. That's like the foundation is rotting on the house and you're worried about the lawn.
Well,
that's what that is.
This seems, John, that you're right. They found a guy that came out of nowhere. Nobody had him on the radar anywhere in league circles. They might have knew the guy, but no one had him as a head coach. He got the head coaching job. He exceeded the expectations that anybody could have. He took them to the playoffs the first year after the team won 4 games. He then gets them to the Super Bowl. And at the Super Bowl, these guys are saying, we knew this. You guys all questioned us and made fun of him at the press conference. And then this year turns into what it is. So they want this guy to succeed. The question is, what do they know about his role in why this team has had success? What do they know in that building that we don't know as to, we made the Super Bowl because Nick did this behind closed doors. He got us to the playoffs that first year because we all praised him the first year where the team was 2-5. And then he said, you know what, this isn't working. We're going to lean on the run. They ran themselves to the playoffs that year with a team that was not very talented. And we gave him credit for acknowledging that the team was not working at 2-5. And he said, you guys are right. Let's change it. So what do they know behind closed doors that Nick gets credit for that we're not giving him, that the viewers and everybody out there are saying, why keep this guy? There has to be something that they feel other than, maybe, I hope anyway, other than we're smarter than everybody and we don't want to show people that we made a mistake.
No, I said this in hour number 1. Well, it was still in hour number 1, but first segment of the show. What he's got going for him, he's malleable. He'll change, he'll shift, he'll agree, he'll carry water. We're not changing defensive coordinators. Yeah, you already have. When called upon, he will serve the wishes of the masters, Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie. I think that's a major attribute that he has in the eyes of his bosses, and enough so that he was able to save his job here. Which,
see, and to me, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that's a bad reason then.
It is. Oh, it absolutely is.
Way.
I'm not blessing it by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what I come up with. Motivation, the guys go to war for him. I'm hard pressed to put anything above he'll go with the flow when he's dictated to by his bosses. If you got better, Mike Gill, please speculate away with us.
And that's my thing is I'm saying there might be something behind, we've heard a lot about that they love playing for Nick, and he has everybody's back. He went out and made himself look like a fool for them. To us, we say he looked like a fool. To them, they say, thank you, Nick. That was our bad. Thanks for going out there and not making us look bad. Those things, I guess, matter. The whole offense thing, over time, your offense, if you keep running the same thing, you got to have another layer to it. We hear the comparison all the time.
Yes.
If I said, a lot of people can relate. If you're watching and you have a son who plays baseball and he's 12 years old in Little League and he's blowing everybody away, and then he goes up to the big field and he just keeps throwing fastballs, and the next thing you know, he has no off-speed pitch, and you're like, he's throwing 78 miles an hour and everybody's hitting him. Yeah, because he only shows one pitch. Over time, he might have been good, but as everybody keeps catching on, you need to have something else. And this offense seemingly was working. Oh, I'm finding out tendencies. I'm seeing more things. I have more on you. And he didn't add anything to it. So at that point, that's where I think you have to say, I want to hire somebody to be my coordinator who I'm going to give him a bunch of plays that is my offense that we like, that work. And I'm going to let him add his stuff into this because we need more pieces to this. I need a changeup. I need a curveball. I can't just keep throwing my heater here. And it seems that he's reluctant maybe to do that.
I want to go back to what Jody said about the offense as a whole. Same offense, pretty much. You have Cam Jurgens coming in for Isaac Sam, a little bit of a downgrade, not massive. DeAndre Swift coming in for Miles Sanders. Miles had a career year. DeAndre had a career year. You and I talked about that a lot. Career years, mainly on the defensive side, was not sustainable. We don't talk about it on the offensive side. The main career year was Jalen Hurts. And guess what? He went backwards. Now, the Honest NFL on Twitter, I know you follow him, used to work for the Eagles, does a tremendous job when it comes to the film. If you want to be a smart Eagles fan, you should follow him at the Honest NFL. This is what he said. The truth is that the flaws in their offensive system were covered up last year for a variety of reasons. Teams didn't know how to invest their resources to defend them. They rarely played from behind and got tested. Their schedule was forgiving, and they had an identity that they played to extremely well. However, the issues they struggled with most this year, the +1 overload pressures, their total lack of a quick passing game, and their lack of middle triangle reads to stress hook droppers all showed up at various points last year too. They're not new problems. There was no evolution to the scheme.
Although the one thing I would push back on a little bit is, yes, he's right about the schedule, but the games they lost this year at the end of the year were against teams that were inferior.
Yes. Well, by that point, the wheels had come off. Certainly, they shouldn't have lost to Arizona. They shouldn't have lost to the Giants.
Listen, John, we came to the realization on Monday's show when you're looking at all this. If you hired an offensive coordinator and he's allowed to run whatever he wants, people will always ask, well, how desirable is this job? Forget the outside factors of Laurie and Roseman, and you might have to run Nick's offense. If I said, Arthur Smith, do you want this job? You're running your offense. He would take it before the words got out of his mouth with the talent on this team. If I said, what do you have to replace on this offense? You would say, nobody. I don't need to replace anybody. Give me the same 11 guys and let's go. So if that's the case, you don't need to replace anybody. You want to run your offense. You like this team. What happened? If you don't want to replace anybody, there's only one answer. Either the coordinator was so inept and such a poor play caller, or the quarterback was the reason the team took the step back. And it's like we want to dance around. He didn't run the same.
Yeah. Well,
his RPO, he didn't make the same decisions. I remember last year, he made the right decision 95% of the time. I'm going to hand it to Sanders. I'm going to pull it from Sanders. I'm going to keep it myself. His lack in the running game is probably the top reason why this offense had the issues. Now, that being said, it was still a top 10 offense, but
yes, it was
certainly
still a top 10.
clunky the
But my
whole
biggest
season.
point to bring up, what the honest NFL said was they stunk against the blitz last year. People forget they did the same tired nonsense. Oh, the box says throw it out, bubble screen, but they're winning games. They're successful. Teams spent the offseason trying to decipher what the Eagles were doing. They made adjustments to it, and the Eagles didn't evolve. Now, to me, the only question is that Nick Sirianni? It's not Brian Johnson. That's the ironic part. Or is it Jalen Hurts? And that to me is the bigger question. And that's the question they're not answering. So they're putting the Band-Aid on the broken leg. That's what they're doing. Now, you can't move on from Jalen Hurts. You can move on from the head coach. But the one guy that doesn't factor into this equation, to be honest, is Brian Johnson. He doesn't factor into it. They stunk last year against the blitz. Watch the games. They're all available. They stunk. They just won games. They played from the lead. They had an easier schedule. That factored into it. And, teams hadn't evolved to the point where they said, all right, we're going to make adjustments to what they're doing. They weren't good last year.
I'm not buying, John. Sorry. They went 14-3, and that's shame on the rest of the. If the blitz worked in the first quarter, why didn't they do it in the second? Why didn't they do it in the third? Why did the Eagles keep scoring points in the second quarter? They could have been that bad at it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the ability to score all those points. You're telling me every other team in the National Football League stinks and is dysfunctional.
Oh,
they couldn't figure out that the Eagles had flaws.
Well, people think the Eagles. Yes, the Eagles won 11 games this year. People think they stunk. They won 11 games. How many teams won 11 games in the NFL? There's a lot of bad organizations, bad teams.
Well, and to further what you said about the honest NFL and the schedule being forgiving, they had more wins this year against playoff teams than any team in the league. Yeah. So this was a non-comparable drop-off. I mean, okay, they weren't good against the blitz last year. They were a play from winning the Super Bowl. Their offense in the Super Bowl, you can make a strong argument, was just as good, if not better, than Kansas City on that day. Hurts just had the fumble, and that really changed the game. Otherwise, he outplayed Mahomes. The offense pretty much had a better day. Statistically speaking, every guy on the field, Brown, Smith, Swift had essentially the same. I mean, the numbers, they ran, I think last year they ran 12 more plays than they ran this year. So it wasn't like, well, last year they ran an extra 200 plays. No, they ran like 1,220.
Yeah, the numbers are eerily similar.
So somebody had to have dropped off. And to me, the one guy's numbers who were way off, there's two guys actually. One is Goddard. His numbers are not the same. They did not use the tight end nearly as much, which would say in the quick passing game, who gets the ball, the tight end is generally that guy. His numbers were way off from last year. And the other guy is Hurts in the run game. His numbers not the same. And to me, that is the big bugaboo from this team in the decision-making. You can call the play, but when it got to the line and you have to make that decision, Hurts made the right decision almost every single time a year ago. And this year, it didn't even look the same. It didn't look like hey, I'm going to give it to Swift. I mean, sure, some nights, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, where he really took off and ran and had big nights. But Hurts never had the game. And then even when he did run, he looked clunky. He looked slow. He looked disinterested. He would slide. I don't know why. Is the contract thing? Did they tell him to get down? Did they say we got to run less? Whatever it was, he was not the same.
Mike, I hope that's broached today because it's an outstanding point. It kind of domino effect. If you don't have the Jalen +1 offense, then it affects every other part of your offense thereafter. And I don't know why this one sticks with me, but I remember it like he said it 20 minutes ago. Nick Sirianni after this contract signing. Why would I take his superpower away?
Right.
Oh, except you did. So I hope that is broached at some point today. All right, one question that I would love to see broached that I don't think is going to happen. You mentioned Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. If they win this week, Patrick Mahomes will do something no other quarterback ever done in the history of the National Football League. That includes that Brady guy. He'll have gone to 4 out of the last 5 Super Bowls. No quarterback has ever done that before. No quarterback in the history of the NFL has started 4 out of 5 Super Bowls. Mahomes has a chance to do that. Any chance anybody broaches that with Howie Roseman today? Hey, how about your ex-coach there? Andy Reid, he's doing pretty well, isn't he, Howie? No one's going to bring that up to Howie this
but the
afternoon,
Eagles love Andy Reid.
Yeah,
I mean,
we do the show Monday, and I have a co-host on Monday's show, Ryan, and he brought up, they fired Andy. Maybe I said, come on. At that point, I don't think there was anybody. It was just time. I think everybody knew it. I think there's a lot of people like me that said it's time, but I don't think he's a bad coach or anything. So I think the relationship and the Andy winning Super Bowls, I think plays into the question I want to hear, Jody. The number one question that I wanted to hear after the Tampa game. Nick, did the players quit, or were you and your staff that unprepared? They're your only 2 options. Did the players quit, or were you and your staff that unprepared? How would you address that? Because what we saw on Monday night was so unacceptable in a playoff game for a team that it showed, and this is why this is interesting. Nick obviously has a resume of success that they felt comfortable enough with to bring him back. His resume of stink was 6 games, and they deemed that those 6 were not enough. That game on Monday night was so embarrassing. Did your team quit, or were you so unprepared? And if Jeffrey Lurie hears that question, he might rethink the decision he made on Friday.
I don't think he's going to rethink
the ship has sailed.
Yeah. I don't think he's.
No, I'm telling you, that game was so unacceptable the way they came. Because, we look bad.
Well, I agree. I went into that game saying there's no way Nick's going to get fired. No way.
Yeah.
I arrived in Tampa saying no way. I let Tampa go. I went, maybe. I mean, that was that bad of a performance. So I agree with that part of it. But Jeffrey isn't going to rethink. Because he hears that question.
He might not act on it, but he might hear those questions and think, did I make a mistake? Was that Mike Gill right on his 47th?
Self-contemplative is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Mike Gill, we kept you a long time today. Thank you very much for jumping in. Enjoy your weekend.
Happy birthday. Enjoy the Poconos. Yeah.
Birthday weekend. You don't look a day over 67, so you're hanging in there and you're tough, bud. Appreciate you jumping in with us. We'll talk to you again next week.
I'm not even 50 yet, Jody. Hanging in there.
Old man Gill will be with us next week.
Take care, everybody.
And McDonald, but he
Thanks,
is old
Mike.
man Gill today because he just got older on his birthday. All right, Jody Mac coming back. We got another good guest for you. Gill's always good. And Andrew Brandt, former NFL executive, host of the Business of Sports podcast, the head of the law department in Villanova. Very smart football guy is going to join us coming up in just about 20 minutes or so. He's got to jump in a little early and get out a little early too. So Andrew Brandt going to join us in hour number 2 here on Birds 365.